Welcome, Chief.
Thanks, Michael. Happy to be here.
Good. I'm glad. Oh, glad you got to join us. So we're excited to sit down and talk about all kinds of wonderful things, but and kind of let folks get to know you a little bit more. I mean, you've been here for over 6 months now, but
Yeah, 6 months and a couple of days.
yeah. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great.
Yeah,
I think we've got some good things going on and, more good things to happen, more good things to come.
yeah,
Feeling good.
yeah. Loving Austin so far.
I love Austin.
Yeah.
This is a thing, though. Like the breakfast tacos.
Yes.
One, you want to figure out like how you ever lived without them. But then when you start looking at, when I think of the weight I've gained since I've been here, it's a problem. So I've got a problem that I got to start dealing with, and it is the love of tacos and what that does to you at the end of the day.
Yes,
Yeah.
They are delicious.
Yes,
but
they are.
the carbs are plentiful here
Yes.
in the land
Yes.
of tacos. So.
Absolutely.
But yeah, no, breakfast tacos are one of the greatest things.
I know, right?
I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Yes.
And it's really hard to not try different places, different types, like especially when you discover brisket mixed in with the tacos.
Oh, okay.
See, it's
Haven't had that,
fantastic.
yeah.
Oh no, yeah, brisket breakfast tacos, or that's where it's at. It's one of my
Yeah.
favorites.
And I always try to go when people give me recommendations. I try to go, I want to try it out.
Yeah.
So that's,
mean,
it's become a problem. That's all I'm saying.
That's not the worst problem to have, though.
It isn't,
In the
right?
grand scheme of things, there could be worse problems to
absolutely.
have. Yeah.
We'll deal with this one.
So let's talk a little bit about you, right?
Okay.
Oh, how long have you been in law enforcement now?
Gosh, when people say like over 3 decades, man, that is like, that's very hard to hear. But I came on to Cincinnati Police Department in 92.
Okay.
So yeah, been going ever since.
How long were you on patrol there?
I was on patrol for 9 years before I got promoted to a sergeant.
Okay.
And then I was a sergeant on patrol for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to, that's when I went to a criminal investigation section from there.
Okay.
Got promoted to lieutenant. Went back to, our thing was every time you got promoted, you had to go back to patrol.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's
as
cool.
a lieutenant, I was back in patrol for about a year and a half. And then went to our community policing group. And then got promoted to captain and back to patrol.
Okay.
Chief of district or captain of District 1.
Did y'all have like detective rank positions, anything like that? Like any sort of investigation stuff there?
We, a long time ago, had a rank called a specialist.
Uh-huh.
And so the specialist rank ended up during contract negotiations doing away with it and phasing it out. So it was done through attrition. And so we
Gotcha.
probably have a few people in the specialist rank, but they did nothing. There was nothing, there was nothing more they had to do. There was nothing, it didn't get you specific assignments. It was just above a police officer.
Okay.
So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And what shifts were you working when you were on patrol? Like as an officer first?
Oh man, 3rd shift.
Love it. That's nights for y'all.
Yeah,
right?
11 at night to 7 in the morning.
Ooh.
And we
11
used
to
to have 6. We worked 6 days before we had an off day, so it was, and we'd rotate. So we'd work 6 days, off 2, and then you'd rotate through the week until you got a 3-day weekend. So that was tough.
That's a rough schedule.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how long were you on that schedule?
Oh my gosh, for a few years. And like I said, nights is it's no joke. You have to lie to yourself and tell yourself that you love it so much. Otherwise, you would cry every single day that you got ready for work.
I'm actually like that was the only here on patrol is the only shift that I worked, night shift. That was it. And obviously here we do 10s, and so ours is when I was on David, 8P to 6A for a little bit, 8:30 to 6:30, switched a little bit, but 8P to 6A. And I loved it.
Yeah.
I still love shifts.
People do. I mean, they love. My husband was on nights for 12 years. So people love it.
Me? I don't know what it is about it. I like it. I like not having to set an alarm clock in the morning and just like you can go to bed when you get off work.
Right? Unless you have court.
Well, that's true. Yeah. Those court calls midday, those were brutal because all of our ALRs and like muni courts would pop up at either 9 a.m. or 1 p.m. So like literally the worst times ever. Wow. So no, those weren't my favorite, but night shift is awesome. Like you get to sneak around.
Right. To do the work. And
you don't get stuck in traffic, which here is a major problem. Like I don't understand how a lot of our evening and day shift folks do it. Like it's miserable sitting in traffic.
Yeah, and to go from nights where there's really no people out and come to day shift where the world is awake.
Everybody's up. Yeah. You get a little bit used to dealing with, especially at night, the folks that are still getting drunk They may be hungover.
Mhm.
You know, folks that are high or on meth or whatever. Like, you just get used to dealing with, you know, some interesting folks.
Yes.
And it's just a lot of times it's just unique calls. Like, and it's just kind of crazy because you can have conversations with them. It's just not the most normal conversation.
That's right.
Like, it's
That's
like you're
right.
talking with an
You get a
alternate
different
reality.
look of humanity, right? You get a different
Yes.
look of you know, what's going on.
Yeah,
That's
and then
for
you
sure.
and then you start working on day shift, and it's all just like normal
Mhm.
people trying to go to work at work,
You
like
have to
things that
remind
happen.
yourself that these are normal people. Yeah. trying to go to
Yes,
work, Yeah.
it's very different. So,
Mhm.
but how long were you a sergeant?
I was a sergeant for, let's see, I want to say 5 years maybe before I got promoted to lieutenant.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so I mean, and all of that was on patrol as a sergeant, except for a little bit. You moved
Yeah, just
to,
a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So that's pretty good. You know,
Yeah.
10 plus years on patrol. That's
Oh yeah,
good.
that's that's the bulk of my career was
Yeah.
been in patrol.
So now one of the real questions: how many officers were with Cincinnati when you started?
I want to say probably 1,300, 1,400 maybe.
Oh, that's good.
1,300.
That's a good
Yeah.
amount.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good sized department.
Yeah.
So that's
So
about
now
where
it's
we are right
under
now.
11 right now. So
It's under 1,100 now.
Mhm.
Oh wow.
And so that's the thing is, Cincinnati, they were always trying to, there was a lot of effort by some to get us down to 600 officers to kind of be in step with Toledo or Akron, Ohio, because, Cincinnati only has 305,000. But we have, professional sports teams and Fortune 500, so daytime population of over 1 million. And so that was kind of the reasoning of why. And crime, right? Like I think second behind Chicago and per capita.
Yeah.
So it's a, little bit of a violent place.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Mhm.
Oh, all right. So did you ever get to work like games? You're working NFL, major league games, any of that when you were?
No,
No?
I'd like to work details, but it was never the games and stuff. No,
Really? See, those
No.
are some of the most fun, I think.
I know.
So-
Well, it just never appealed to me. No.
You'd rather just attend.
I'd rather attend.
Okay, that's fair.
Yes.
That's fair.
Walk around. Yes. Not be in charge of it.
All
Yeah.
right. So, and you were in the Navy prior to going
Mhm.
into law enforcement. How long were you in the Navy?
I was in the Navy. I got a 2-year enlistment.
Okay.
They used to offer 2-year enlistments
Mm-hmm.
before the Gulf War.
Mm-hmm.
Went in right after high school. Was a barber.
Mm-hmm.
I know one haircut. So if anybody has a number 2, there we go.
You're good to go. You've got them covered.
That's right.
All right. I like it. I
Uh-huh.
like it. Oh, and then got out and just went straight into law
Yeah, I
enforcement.
got out and
What was the appeal?
I think it was one, just always knowing that I wanted to get into law. Somewhere, there was part of me that was, do I want to be a lawyer? Do I want to do that? And because I came from the inner city of Cincinnati, and it was, rough neighborhood. It was blue collar in a lot of ways. I mean, growing up, it was. It was you were yelled at by your neighbor, and you didn't have to worry about your mom coming and attacking the neighbor for yelling at you. That's just everyone looked out for each other. So it was a tight knit community, but definitely poor area. And so it was kind of like, what resources do I have to, and Navy was a good choice. And then to come out of there and look about what are my options, what am I doing? And I had a baby. And so it was kind of like, okay, police department's hiring. I want to do law. I know I want to be part of this. And there I went.
Yeah.
So I signed up. I was still pregnant when I took the written test.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was just a few weeks old when I took the physical and
Yeah.
the run, and
I see. And
but you know what?
then
Nothing like feeling you have to do something right, like determination.
Yeah.
Like this, I need this, I want this, and you get it done.
Yeah. I mean, that's the number one, like when you look at a lot of the academy stuff, that's the number one thing that we tend to look at, right? It's not necessarily that you can do the most push-ups, that you can run
Right.
the fastest, that you can do all this other kind of stuff. It's, do you push through it all?
That's exactly it.
Right. It's
Right.
because it's the people that quit that it's like, okay, like it's time to move on. Different
Yeah.
careers probably for you.
Right.
But it's the people who will fight through anything to be like, I am determined. I want to be here. Like
Exactly.
those are the people.
How
that we
resilient are you? Right?
Exactly.
Because this is a job. When you look at policing overall, you have got to have a lot of resiliency.
Like.
Just overall.
Yeah.
The things we see,
Mhm.
things that are done, you see the worst of humanity. But then you also have an opportunity to truly see the best and, change people's lives. I mean, I've talked about that. It's the truth. Every interaction we have as cops stays with people. Every negative interaction and every positive. Those things stay with people. And so there's a lot of, power's not the right word, but we have to look at it as an opportunity. Every single time we have these interactions, it's an opportunity.
Mm-hmm. It definitely is. Oh, and I think it's easy. I was talking to someone about this the other day, where it's easy, and we have to remind ourselves, because when you're in this day in, day out, especially on patrol, it's very easy to become desensitized to a lot of things. Right? It's just another call. It's just another crash. It's another assault. It's something that we go to all the time. That it's super easy to just kind of just becomes normal to us.
Right.
Versus reminding yourself, like this does have an impact on a lot of people. Like how you interact with people can drive their perception of police, whether it's negative or positive. Right? I've had plenty of interactions with people where they had negative interactions, and that's how they come into it. And you're kind of swimming upstream trying to get their mind changed, where it's like, hey, look, like, I'm really sorry that you had that, but it wasn't me. It's like, it's not everybody, they might've just had a bad day, whatever the case may be, but trying to remind ourselves how important it is, not just the job, but also how we interact with people. So, and in fairness, there's kind of a reverse that needs to happen as well, where public also needs to understand, like, officers deal with so much, they need a little bit of grace at times as well.
Right? You imagine, we talk about these calls for service and just going call after call. And we can think of this accident that just happened where 5 people lost their lives, and an infant and a 2-year-old. And the cops that were there for that, right? And so then they leave there and they go to another call for service after seeing that. Something so mundane, something so small and insignificant to them compared, right, to what they just saw. You're most likely not going to get the, when you think of customer service, or you think about those interactions. And you're right, there needs to be some grace there, because there are some really just some disturbing, ugly things out there.
Yes. That was actually what I told the cadet class, the latest one that just came out. That was what I told them. I was like, hey, we've all gone to these calls. You will see just that. You'll see something horrible, and then you go to the next call, and you have to be able to switch hats, switch modes. You got to be able to talk to it, because that person probably isn't going to realize that you just came from this other horrific thing. And
That's right.
There's a lot of mode switching that you got to do in this job.
Is. Yeah. Yeah. And you think about officer wellness, and you think about where we are. My God, when you think in terms like that, it's, man, all of us need to be talking to somebody, right? I mean, you have to have those mechanisms to release things and to talk about things, and, share, what you saw and how you felt about it. I mean, it's a lot. There's no doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. I think read a thing a while back about how, average person deals with like 3 to 4, 3 to 6 traumatic incidents in their lifetime, whereas officers, and it's not just police, fire, EMS, they tend to get it as well, where they see, we all see 300 to 400 traumatic incidents throughout your career.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's a lot of exposure.
I would say it's probably even more than that. I mean, you think about, but I think it comes back to kind of compartmentalizing things. And when you see, if you imagine, I always compare it to when you go to that first call about maybe kids left alone or in unsafe conditions, and you go in, the house is just a mess, right? It is, there's no food, and the house is a mess. But then you start seeing worse and worse and worse. And all of a sudden, that first one doesn't look that bad, right?
Yeah.
So, and would we have, as time goes by, do you then just leave those kids there because that's not as bad as this extreme? And so that's what you end up dealing with as officers in your mind when you truly have to take a look and stop and say, what's happening here? Because that is bad. That is still not acceptable.
Right.
So that's what cops deal with.
Yes. When you were a patrol officer, did you ever think one day you'd be chief?
No, not at all. Are you kidding me? I always like to think about, because in the academy here, I had a young child, and I'm trying to do this on my own. I'm going to the academy, and I always think of when George Bush did his speech, and he was talking to, I believe it was West Point, and he said, "Where are all my C students?"
Oh, yeah.
And he says, "You too may be president one day."
Right.
I think about that, like, because it was hard, it was challenging, but it was one of those things too. Like, I pushed through, and but no, never thought to be chief. My dad always talked, when I started getting promoted and kind of going through the ranks, my dad would always say, "Well, it's because you've never liked being told what to do. That's why you want to be a boss. You don't like being told what." But it was, for me, it was getting promoted to be more in charge of your own destiny. You could, as an officer, you're picked to be on traffic posts and you're picked to do special assignments, those type of things.
Mm-hmm.
But when you can start getting promoted, you can start making change where you want to see change.
Mm-hmm.
A mentor told me once, you can do, if you don't like something, you can do one of two things. You either work to have it changed or you accept it
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
be quiet about it.
Yeah.
That's what you can do. So that stuck with me. And I
Yeah.
think when you want to change things or you want to be part of the change, you have to get yourself in a position that you can do that.
Mm-hmm. When did you start to think like, hey, like, I'm doing some things. This seems kind of cool. Like maybe I'll try to go a little bit higher. Like when did you kind of, I don't know, was there ever like a moment where it kind of hit you where you're like, you know what, like this whole chief thing, like, yeah, I think I'm about it. Like, I think I want to do this.
I don't know. I think it helps too to have the right partner with you. You like, to have, my husband beside me who's always felt like when you feel like it's okay to fail too, you know what I mean? Like, let's try it. Let's, and someone that supports you and pushes you and, why not? So I think that was a little bit of it every time. And then having good mentors that, friends that you can talk to and, when you're about to coming from a good place, and you look at policing and where it is today and where you want, and certainly, my God, after, 2020 and after all the things that we've been through, as a profession, that there's things that we need to do and there's things that people need to understand, right? And I think when you come from a place where you want to do the right thing and you want to support the police and support the mission, that's always been a driving factor as well.
Mm-hmm. Have you noticed more over there? Because I mean, to me, it seems very apparent within Austin, but I grew up here. This is my town. This is my home, right? And so, like, sometimes you just get kind of caught in your own bubble,
right?
So, like, when you look at law enforcement as a whole, does it seem like there's been this progression where it's just moved more and more towards being politicized? Like, it's just politics has played more of a role in how the profession is viewed and how like things get responded to, like compared to like when you first started.
Well, certainly, but I think too a lot of that is just where we are as a society. When you look at cameras and you look at, everyone wants to send you a snippet of something, right? And so everyone's going off that first impression of something instead of really waiting to get full details about something or waiting till you see what led up to this or what is this truly about. And I think as a society, it's that mentality of this, this clickbait and this quick reaction to things instead of truly taking time to understand what's occurring. And I think that's part of it.
Yeah. No, I think it definitely is. I mean, in the position as a chief, like how do you even try to combat that where you do like the news cycle is so short, right? Like you said, people see a 30-second clip of something, they've made up their mind and then they move on, right?
Yeah.
How do you, when you're trying to change people's perceptions of a department where, it can be, at times it's been vilified, every department makes their mistakes. And so like there's times where we have to own our mistakes. And then there's times where things get slanted and skewed and like it's the wrong perception. But how do you fight against it when you just, like I said, people's attention span is so short. Like they see a 30-second clip, they make a determination about what the officer did, what the department did, but there's so much more to the story.
Yeah.
How do you even combat that?
I think the first thing is getting the message out that I want to know what's going on. I don't want a video forwarded to me. I want to be able to see this and get in front of it, right? Like this, if something's happened and it looks like it, but see, that kind of goes back to the same point. Maybe they have reviewed the entire thing and there is nothing there, or it's been, this is good. And this 30-second clip showed, just a piece of it and what led up to it or whatever. But truly just to me, it's getting in front of it and being able to speak about it and being transparent as you can in it. But, and if it's us and if it's training issues, things like that we have to deal with, we'll say that. But if it's, hey, you don't have the full picture, let's paint this full picture for you here and tell you what happened. And I think to me, it's about getting in front of it.
Yeah. So you made it all the way up in Cincinnati to an assistant chief.
Right.
And what were you over? Your
Investigations.
Investigations as the assistant chief.
Yes.
Okay. And so the inevitable follow-up to that one.
Right.
Why Austin? What made you think, you know what, I'm going to look to be a chief and, oh, hey, look, here's Austin. Like, I'm going to put in there.
These jobs don't come open, that often, right? And so when they do, you're looking. And I always felt like I had something more to give. Like I had ideas and I had, I care about cops. I care about the profession. And I felt like, I have some ideas. And So at that point, it came to let me be open to what's out there. And so you get yourself on these, um, I don't know, these clips that forward you job openings. You sign up
Oh
for
yeah.
those. Let me get those. And when I saw Austin, the description clearly stated that they wanted someone that had prior chief experience. And so I thought, oh, it's not me. But then I'm going and I'm thinking, I have the background, I have education, I have all these things. And so I just reached out to the recruiter, and that's the only one I've ever done that to, because Austin is, like you said, I don't know if you forget how incredible the city is when you're living in it every day, but the quality of life here and living is incredible. And this is a great city. And so when you see a name like Austin, and then you look, I mean, God, you guys can look back at who applied for this job the last couple openings. You've had some big names there that have applied. I mean, Michael Moore was the police chief of Los Angeles. You had Ann Kirkpatrick, who's now, chief of New Orleans. I mean, some big names that have tried to come to this job. And there's a reason for it. There's a reason. It's a great city. And so seeing that and then reaching out to the recruiter, and he's like, what do you have to lose? You do have the background. Let's do it. Just put it in and let's see where it goes. And here I am.
Yeah. Now here
And
you
here
are.
I am. So, yeah. Yep.
You don't regret it?
No,
Okay, good.
not at all. Are you kidding me?
That's the number one question.
No, not at all. Are you kidding me? This has been, honestly, career-wise, this is the highlight of my career. It really is.
Good.
It's culminated to this. And
Yeah.
here I am. I'm sitting across from the Mike Bullock. And here we are on a podcast. It's incredible.
I was gonna say, talk about those people that you just never know where you'll wind up. I was just a lowly street cop.
Life is weird, right?
Put in
Life
for
is
this,
weird.
and yet here I am.
Yeah, that's
they
right.
they let me do this. They let me come out and say things and do things, and
Yeah.
life is weird. Life is crazy, but it's pretty cool, the opportunities.
It
that you
is,
get.
right? And I
So
think that's
like
it, is
that.
just being open to them. I mean, never, again, you come to a point in your career where I'd like, I could be chief. I would like that experience, but it wasn't something that forever I was, working toward. It's just one of those things that, you take life step by step and you take opportunities as they come, training as it comes. And then here we are.
Hey, like you said, life is about opportunity.
Yes, it
Life is
is.
about seizing
And taking,
opportunity.
being bold in your choices, right?
Yeah.
That's it too. And adventure.
And it also goes back to what you kind of mentioned, when you're talking about being with the right partner, where you have to be understanding that you're going to take a risk that could result in failure.
That's right.
Right? Like if you're not willing to take that risk, you're never going to wind up anywhere.
Yep.
And so, if you take that risk though, you never wind up or never know where you're going to wind up to begin with. So,
That's exactly it.
and you got to like the opportunities.
Yes.
Like it's pretty cool. And I
Yes.
agree, right? Like I think even being here, it is at times we do get stuck, like I said, in our own little bubble here where things have changed so much in Austin, having, grown up here, lived here almost my entire life. Like, it's easy to see like, man, things have changed so much and oh God, this looks terrible or whatever, right? It's easy to get stuck in that. But then oftentimes I do go visit other cities and then I come back and I'm like, man, Austin's pretty cool. Like
That's
I still love it. It's still a good place. We have things that, I don't love. We have things that I'd like to see us change, all this other kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I still do think I very much believe Austin is a great city. I'm not going anywhere. I don't want to go anywhere. Like this is my
city.
home.
It really
and
is.
so
Yep.
like you gotta love it. And if you're not invested in it, then like it's never going to get better. So
That's right.
I'm all about that. So you came to Austin, all right? And then immediately you were like, okay, you know what? I have this crazy idea. We've been doing this for, we've had 6th Street closed for 30 years, plus years, whatever, and we're going to open it now, right? Big thing that you came in and you changed like, pretty quick right after you got here.
Right.
How do you feel like that one's going, right? That's pretty, it's kind of like a shock and awe to the system a little bit there. But, I've had, I've had reactions from business folks and other folks that are happy, right? That like it. But I'm curious from your perspective, right? Like kind of how that all came about for you. And, we obviously had some conversations about it, but, that was a big one.
Yeah,
Most people know that 6th Street's always been closed. So
I think it was just kind of seeing, one, the amount of resources that it takes to do it, to close it, and that, the businesses that are there, that are benefiting from it, right? And then our officers are getting hurt. We have a lot of uses of force there, and it just isn't safe. It was just kind of like when you can look at it from that level, it's unacceptable. And these uses of force they go on these officers' records, and they can become many. They're in this environment where you're dealing with intoxicated people, you're dealing with fights, And it just seemed unacceptable to me. And
Mhm.
so again, these bars taking, what appeared to me as no responsibility or little responsibility for what was occurring right outside their business.
Mm.
And so when you can look at, all the underage and all the problems that we were having there, underage drinking coming in, and they didn't even have to look for a club. They just
Mhm.
stayed there in the middle and just kind of had this whole party atmosphere. But that's it. Is kind of how do we take a look at this and truly problem solve it, right? So how do we break this up, get the businesses, because at the end of the day, it was never about decreasing business sales and things like that. That's not what I want to do.
Right. No.
But how do we work together to close this? And we can look at you and I talked about this. There's Nashville. There's other places that have an open street that don't close a street right away to just foster this environment, and certainly fostering it where the officers are standing, on the peripheral, waiting to be kind of signaled in from these bar owners, and that's what I was seeing.
Mhm.
So to me, it was just how do we change this, and let's try it.
Yeah.
And so, but
And
always coming back to if we get to a point, and people will say this, and they are absolutely right. I have not seen it the busiest. I have not been here where it's the busiest. And so
sure.
that is a very good point. And it
Yeah.
might come to, like, oh, we got to close this immediately. This is
Mhm.
not, sustainable. And that may happen. But now we're at a point where we've been in this for a few months, and
Mhm.
we've seen, some drop in the number of uses of force, the number of arrests, the number of fights in the area. So
Mhm.
something is working, but what's the next phase? We cannot, we have this goofy looking fencing that's up that's, aesthetically not very pleasing to look at. It's not strong enough to, stop a car if they were to come. So what's the next phase of this? And we're paying for it. The
Yeah.
police department's paying for that. And so
Yeah.
what's the next phase of that? So that's where we are now is until the sidewalks and all those things get expanded and ballards or however we're moving forward with this gets
Mhm.
done, which is a couple years off most likely. What's the interim? What are we doing here?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the conversation right now.
Well, I mean, you kind of mentioned it, but like n- to just highlight a little bit more about the significance. And granted, this is a small sample period,
Yeah,
right? Like
it is.
it's a
Mhm.
small one, but when you're comparing this year to last year, it's not like, oh, it's down a little bit.
Right.
It's like uses of forces are down by over half, I
Yeah,
believe. And
significantly.
then
Yeah.
officer injuries are
Mhm.
now very infrequent and arrests are down. So like it does tend to show, and just, common sense logic would tend to indicate that when you have these, like the street is open and people can't just gather there in the middle,
Right.
like what you're talking about, then you're going to have fewer instances
Right.
where it's just not as conducive an environment to people
Mhm.
sitting there stewing, getting upset with one another, and then rival gangs, whatever,
Right.
beefs and fights breaking out, all that other kind of stuff. Like you're just not creating that environment.
Mhm.
Like there may be some other things that need to be adjusted,
Right. Oh, for
but
sure. Definitely.
that's a big part of it, right? And
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing to a lot of this is that sometimes, and Austin has been known for this in the past, where we do, death by committee or death by study,
Mhm.
where we'll study everything forever
Right. Right.
and nothing ever changes. And I think that's a failure to a degree, because at some point you have to realize we're never going to come up with the perfect plan that's going to be, like no issues, no problems, nothing. Like
Right.
it doesn't exist.
No, it does not.
At the end of the day, you just got to start.
Mhm.
Like you just got to be willing to take that first step
Yeah.
and do things.
Right.
And from that aspect, I do think it's helpful, to have someone like you come from the outside to come into Austin and look and be like, well, but why are we doing this?
Mhm.
Like that doesn't make any sense. And then you get the world's worst answer, in my opinion. Well, that's the way that we've always
That's
done
right.
it. I was
Yes.
like, well, that's probably the first indicator that we need to look at this.
Right.
If we're just doing something because we've always done it and we don't understand the why,
Mhm.
then we probably need to look at it.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's coming from a point too of, to your point of all of this, like meeting after meeting after meeting. At what point does the action start? And so my thing is, and again, like I just said, if it comes to a point where we have to close this down, we will close it down, because that the safety is the ultimate, and it's our
Mhm.
responsibility. So that will happen, and it may be that we're going back to kind of look at how we do this again. But
Mhm.
we have to move in that next direction, which is, are we putting planners, or what are we doing in the interim here before these city streets get done?
Sure.
Something is working here, but again, we need to keep people safe. And if the crowds get so much,
Mhm.
we're going to have to close it,
Yeah.
and we'll have to figure something else out. But that's the reality of it.
And I mean, and it's just to me, I just don't see that as that big of an ordeal because we make those kinds of impromptu moves all the time. We're the capital city,
Right.
protests,
Hmm.
unplanned events, all kinds of things pop up all the time. We shift, we move, we close. Like at times it can have a significant impact on our ability to handle multiple large scale things at a time.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, like we're used to dealing with those things
Right.
kind of last minute. So, being able to be flexible, like it's just,
Absolutely.
I just don't see it as
Yeah.
that big of
It
a
isn't.
deal.
It isn't.
And
And if it's
so
at that point just putting 2 police cars to block it, and we're rerouting. I mean, that's what
it
we're
is what
doing.
it is.
So it
Yeah.
is. Yep.
Yeah. Well, what else have you seen? I mean, obviously coming from, Cincinnati, a whole other city, state,
Hmm.
like, different police department, and coming here, has there been anything else that's kind of been, I don't know, like I don't necessarily say culture shock, but something where you look and you're like, something you've never seen before, something that you're like, man, that
Yeah,
just,
I think maybe just being in the capital,
oh,
and
okay.
just
Yeah.
all the the politics that are involved in it, and
Mm.
just this and I'm thinking, okay, is this an every year thing that we'll have to go on up to the Capitol and testify about why we shouldn't make it a district, and why this and that, and so it's just this that's kind of new and interesting to me.
Did y'all have a whole bunch of different like neighboring jurisdictions or whatever that y'all had to work with up in Cincinnati? Because here, I mean, obviously we have DPS that's like embedded
Yeah.
within us, but then we also have, different constables and sheriffs, and
Yeah,
then
no,
we
that
have
was
other
new
little
too. No.
cities right within here.
The Hamilton County Sheriff that is within the county of Cincinnati, they just run the jails. And then
Mm,
they would do any small jurisdictions that would pay for their police service.
mm-hmm.
They would have that, but they didn't come into the city at all. They
Yeah,
did no work in the city,
yeah,
so that was different. That's different.
yeah. Oh, and then we have,
But I
mhm.
appreciate it. Can I say that? I do appreciate it. I
Absolutely.
appreciate DPS, and I appreciate those partnerships, because I think when we start looking at problem solving, we start looking at these locations. They're going to be good partners to us. And
Mhm,
so I appreciate them. And I think when we look at our highways and we look at the work we need
mhm,
to do back with our traffic and those type of things. So I just look
yeah,
forward to working with DPS when we start really looking at prolific offenders and
mhm,
focused deterrence and all those things. I want to
yeah.
invite them in to help us, and I'm pretty sure that they'll be there for us. So I appreciate
Yeah,
them.
in my time here, they have been extremely valuable
Hmm.
because I mean, right after I got here is when we had the Austin bomber that
Yeah.
came here, and DPS was critical in
Hmm.
that one because we were getting flooded with suspicious package calls, like people, like because nobody knew there
Right.
was way
Right.
too
How
much
terrifying.
uncertainty,
Yeah.
and so DPS was extremely valuable because they took over every highway for us. If it was a crash, if it was a DWI, if it was anything on the highways, even some regular calls for service,
Mm.
they were there. They were helping us so that way we could focus on all the packages and
Yeah.
trying to clear a lot of that. And so, I mean, and that was a week plus that we were dealing with all of that. And so like they came in, they helped us, and it was extremely valuable. And over the years, they've done that, numerous different times where they've come in, they've helped
Right.
us. So from the patrol officer perspective,
Hmm.
having DPS, like they've been great to us,
Right.
and we've always worked really well with them.
Yeah.
And it's always good to see. It's always good to be able to work with multiple jurisdictions because
Hmm.
we also have UTPD as well,
Right.
right?
That's
Because we
right.
have a campus right in the
Yep.
middle of the city as
That's
well,
right.
and then you have hospitals and
Hmm.
all this other kind of stuff. Like it is
Yep.
a major city with a lot of a lot of complex integration that
Yes,
has to
absolutely.
happen
And
here.
those MOUs are important, and what we do together is important.
Hmm.
To the safety of Austin. That's the reality of it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Oh, and it is cool still being a capital city. Like there's a lot that goes on
Hmm.
here, but there's a lot of fun things that happen in Austin.
Oh
So
yeah,
it's a
for
very
sure.
busy city.
Yes.
So
Yes, and that's what I
um,
love.
yeah, and you got to see. So we went through South by, and you got to see ACL,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
what do you think about our festival life here?
I'll tell you what's the most impressive is the work that the department does, just the logistics of everything and how
Hmm.
they manage all of the moving parts of this as far as safety. It's fantastic. I
Hmm.
mean, it is, when you look across the country and across the world, really, at festivals and the size of the crowds that we get here, the job that the Austin Police Department does and the event planning unit and all the officers that take part, it is, man, they just need to be some serious shout outs to them. It
Yeah.
is just amazing.
Yeah, our special events unit, they are
Top notch.
busy.
Yes.
They are
Yep.
top notch, but they are also busy. I was talking to one of them this week, back during South by, and we were talking about it because usually South by and ACL, like there's always multiple other events going on. We have events at
Mm-hmm.
Moody Center that we're working.
Right.
We have a soccer game going on up at
Football
Q2.
game. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's always something going on, and
Right.
sometimes it all hits at one time,
Yep.
and it just makes it like it's a lot, but
Mhm.
yet everything tends to get covered, everything gets
Yes.
taken care of, and lots of people putting in a lot of work. So,
Well, and you look at, just look at these events. No, the ACL and South by, no critical incidents
mhm,
that occurred. And this many people that have come to the city, this many people taking part in these festivals, and no major incidents.
yeah,
It's amazing.
yeah, this has been we've been doing good this year, doing
Mhm.
good this year. So hopefully we'll keep it up. That's right. We did
Yep.
good with ACL. We've been doing like we've been kind of
We've been
chugging right on
lucky,
along.
and there's
Yeah.
a little bit of luck there, but there's a lot of preparation. There's a lot
We'll
of,
take it.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good units that do a lot of good work.
Mhm.
I always got to give a shout out. One of the ones that's always kind of like behind the scenes that we have so many good units here, but one of the ones that I'm always just constantly impressed by is our cast team.
Mhm.
Mostly because I think that's one of the best highlights of what makes Austin unique and
Yes.
how we integrate and how we police and how we take care of our city.
And our public safety partners, right? Like
Exactly.
together, how we integrate. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
because like that cast team, like at times, especially during these major festivals and all of that.
Well, explain what cast is to those that may not know what it is.
Yeah, so it is this team where it's a combination between police, EMS, sometimes fires attached to, but we create units that are rescue task forces, RTFs is what we tend to call them. And then we have other ones where it's like a quick response force where we can get officers to a critical scene very quickly. But the ultimate goal of it is to save lives and to prevent people from dying is really, really the goal. It's the unit that exists when things really go sideways, and always being ready for it. But they've been deployed downtown for quite a while now, and so we attach a medic with officers, so that way we can get medics into a hot scene,
Yeah.
right when things are right after they have happened, right before we've completely locked down an area because we want to get life-saving care, advanced life-saving care to people who are hurt and get them out as quickly as we
And
possibly
I think
can.
Austin was the first, on
We
the
were.
scale that it is, the first in the country to do this,
Correct.
and which has been repeated.
Mhm.
But that is something that should be very
It's-
proud of.
it started
is,
here.
Yes, amazing.
And it's crazy because there have been times where our cast team, because they have that medic attached, where they'll be working downtown and they have negative response times where
They're there.
you're
Yeah.
there before a call is ever
Yeah.
actually generated. You hear the shots fired, you stage right down. As soon as they say, hey, we have a person down, then they roll right in
Yeah,
and then
for sure.
scoop up the person,
Yep.
get them stable, get them in an ambulance, get
But
them
Mike,
gone.
I think it's important too. Let's talk about the average officer. Not that there's an average officer, but let's talk about the officers that are on these patrol shifts that carry these medic bags like nothing I've ever seen. Where we
Yes.
are as far as saving lives, I mean, we have tourniquets that we use all the time. We
Mhm.
have people with, the
Chest
suction,
seals.
chest
Yeah,
seals,
seals.
people that have military backgrounds in
Mhm.
saving lives that have these medic bags that rival any EMS person. But that's, I mean, as far as policing coming forward in Austin particularly, I mean, they are out to save lives. It is, I've never seen anything like it as far as the willingness to get, to prepare, to respond to those things. And I just think that is, it is worth every highest praise there is. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't see that. You don't see that everywhere.
I am a big believer, and I have talked to a lot of our EMS folks about this as well, that the reason that our homicide rate is not higher than what it is, right? Because, like, yes, it's higher than what it used to be, and I believe that still is an issue, but for a city our size, to
Mhm.
have the homicide rate that we do,
Right.
the reason it is that low, all things considered, is because officers are so invested in saving lives and they carry the equipment necessary
Yeah.
to keep people alive. And EMS does a phenomenal job of working with us and getting to these scenes, getting there quickly, and us being able to pass them off, right? Like
Yeah.
we have a lot of people who are critically injured, but they don't die because officers respond quickly and they're prepared and they're able to keep them alive.
And good hospitals.
And great
Yep.
hospitals. Like
Yep.
we have, like, there's just an environment here that is very conducive
Mm-hmm.
to preventing people from dying when
Yeah.
critical things happen. And it's just, it is incredible. I
Mhm.
have seen officers do so many phenomenal things, from plugging bullet wounds,
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
from, like you said, most officers, everybody carries chest seals. We have compression gauze. We have, you know, a lot of pressure packaging or packing that we can
Mhm.
do for wounds. Tourniquets. Like, most officers carry numerous tourniquets. They don't just
Yep.
carry one,
Right.
right? They carry multiple ones, and
Right.
so it's
And they
just,
do that, and
it's
they don't
incredible.
have to do that, right? You're
No.
mandated to carry one, and yet I think that speaks, you know,
Yeah.
very highly of the department.
Yeah. Well, and we had officers too that would not that long. Well, I guess it was last year, but not too long ago. We had ones where officers buy their own medical equipment. Like, we had an officer
Mm-hmm.
that bought the suction device for when a child is choking. Life vac, I think, is what it's called. But he had that, and then responded to a call where a child was choking, and he had this device on him that he bought himself.
Oh, wow.
And so,
I
like,
hadn't heard that.
officers, officers just, they spend so much time and their own time and their own.
Let's hope
you
somebody
know,
put him in for a
money.
life-saving award.
Oh yeah, he has got lots of good praise, and
Okay,
actually,
good.
as a result of that, which was great. As a result of that, we had a group that reached out and wanted to buy more equipment for us and donate it.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, you know, like, we were able to get them hooked in
Mm-hmm.
with one of our substations, so that way they could buy. Like, we tell them, like, hey, here's equipment that officers use on a regular basis: trauma shears,
Yeah, it's
you
amazing.
know, life-saving equipment. And they went out and bought it and gave it to officers, so that way they can go out there and use it.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it is incredible, like,
Mhm.
how much work. And that's one of the reasons why I constantly say, and I tell all the cadets this in the academy too, I firmly believe that this is one of, if not the best department in the country, because of how invested officers are in doing their job and doing it well.
Right.
Right. And
Yep.
how much of their own time and money they're willing to spend to be good.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I think I am
That
very
speaks
proud of
volumes.
our officers.
Yep. I
Very
agree.
proud of them.
Me too.
So I do love that. But boy, that was a real mushy moment there. Like, I was like, I love my people. They're great. They're great. I'm so proud of them. And it's just cool to see, like, all the things that happen.
Yep.
It's just it's great.
Well, that's the
But-
thing. It's reminding to highlight those things, right? Like, it's not. It's
Mhm.
the everyday. It's the mundane that we get into, right? But it's incredible.
Yeah.
And people need to be aware of what's happening,
Yeah.
what their Austin Police Department's doing.
Yes. And we talked about it in some of our early episodes of our quick little Austin Crime Report little episodes that we've been doing. But it's like in the employee of the week thing, right?
Mhm.
That you pick and you put out. But there's so many stories, like with Officer Fiala, who put out, he you know, spent some of his own money to help somebody out. He bought, you know, a pillow that, you know, someone really wanted but they couldn't afford. And then we had, you know, another officer, Officer Caba, that gave his hat and wrote a little message inside of it for a kid that was infatuated with the hat and he really wanted it. Like, the things that officers do that happen on a daily basis is like, it far outnumbers the negative incidents,
Oh,
but
for sure.
the negative ones tend to get the most attention.
Yeah, that's what garners the attention. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Which is, you know, frustrating.
It is.
But,
Yep.
you know, I think it's just important to highlight out there that there's so much good that
Mhm.
happens, and so much good that happens within the department that,
And that's why it's important to highlight it, right?
Yes.
Is to, you know, when we do have those negative, and you know what, that's the reality of this business.
is.
There'll always be something because we're
Mhm.
we're humans and we work in this environment. So,
Mhm.
but to counter those things, we need to get these good stories out, and it
Yeah.
matters.
yeah, no, we definitely do. But
And it
Yeah.
matters it goes back to that every interaction you have, right? There's an
mhm.
opportunity, you know, of that officer. Every opportunity that we have,
Mhm.
there's an opportunity.
Yes, there definitely is.
Did I just
Well-
say every opportunity there's an opportunity? I think I said
It
that.
is. No, that's
But
true.
yeah, but
It's-
I guess,
it's
right?
fi- It was profound. It was profound, is what that is.
In
Oh.
its dumbness, it was profound.
I think it's good. It made sense
It
to
did
me.
make sense to you. Good.
It
And that's
made
all that
sense to
matters right
me.
now.
That's
Just-
right.
That's all that matters.
I'll take it. What, having been here for a little bit now, what do you think is something? Well, actually, let me ask this first. You've been doing a lot of community meetings too,
Mhm.
right? Like, what's the number one feedback that you tend to get from people, like, in all these meetings that you're going to, community events?
Yeah.
Like, what's one of the number one things that you're hearing the most?
It's so weird because, you know, as police, we always want to think that it is, you know, we'll come with our stats and we'll think, okay, we're going to talk about shootings and stabbings and all these things. And, you know, that's what we think is the most important. But it's all of these, it's the quality of life issues
Right.
that bother people. It's the fact that I've got 12 cars here that are abandoned that need to be towed. It is people just firing shots in the air, celebratory, those type of things. So it's really those. What is my quality of life here in this neighborhood, and how can I increase it by doing some stuff, right? And so that's it. Is when the police can partner with those community members, and we can start changing the reality for that community.
Yeah,
that's community policing.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And all the folks I've talked to as well, like that tends to be the biggest thing, right? Like, yeah, the violent crime is important.
Yeah, everybody, yeah.
But more people are
Absolutely.
affected by the lower level quality of life crime.
That's right.
Versus the violent crime. The violent crime is always like, it's that unknown. It's the fear in the back of your head versus most people like, I had my car vandalized. I was involved in a wreck and the cops didn't show up.
Right.
I was, someone broke in or broke a window to my business or things
Someone
like
stole
those
my
are
plant. Someone did those type of things.
Exactly.
Yeah,
like those are the things that most people
because the
deal
violent
with.
crime, if you can think about it, it is true. It is very small percent. It's probably 0.005% of the people in the city that contribute to the violent crime in the city. And if you're not in a lifestyle of drugs or those, most likely you're not going to be a victim of a violent crime. And of course, there are definitely other scenarios that come into play where that's not true. But it comes back to those quality of life and what people care about. Is my garbage being picked up? What is this? Why can't I? Get into the store? Why is there? And the unhoused is a big deal here in this city. We know that. So those are all issues that we have to deal with.
Yeah,
that are important.
Yes. Speaking of unhoused homeless issues, have you gone out and toured any of the other facilities that are around here that are like working on that? Like we have the and I'm going to forget the name, but I think it's just down the way over at Esperanza. It's the other ones. The other ones.
The other tiny house.
They have a lot of the tiny villages.
I have not been there yet.
Mobile Loaves and Fishes has one as well.
And I think they're getting ready to add like a couple hundred more more. Is that true?
Yep. There's some of these groups that they're expanding. They're trying to do more. And I will tell you I believe it's and I may have to have Christopher fact check me over here as I look at them, but I'm pretty sure it's the Other Ones Foundation that runs the facility down here off 183. I got to go and tour that one, and I do like their setup. Christopher's looking at me. Do you have an answer?
Yeah, you're right. The Other Ones is the new one you were visiting. Community First Village is the Mobile Loaves and Fishes one off of Hawkeye Road.
There you go. Yeah. So the Other Ones, like I got to go and tour that one. I was extremely impressed by everything that they're doing. And I like some of the solutions that they've got going. Like we've historically had some other issues with some of the problems because when we were doing a lot of these hotels, for officers, that was like there wasn't a whole lot of other service connection that was going on. So like they just became these crime hotspots for us where we were just constantly going there. There was one in the sector that I worked, and so we would have drug deals, stabbings, and shootings that were happening there all the time, it seemed like, because we just consolidated everybody, but we weren't doing anything else. Versus these other groups, like the Other Ones, they're actually, providing stable housing. They're actually getting people connected. Yes. Like it's just these other solutions that are actually looking at it more long term seem far more effective. And it's great. And it's great to see. And they've reached out. Like they've reached out and they've wanted to work with us and they want to try to find better ways of doing it. And even better is that they're also trying to do things through not just relying on the city, but like public-private partnerships. They're working with local businesses, like a lot of people that are invested in it. Yeah. So it's really cool to see that kind of stuff. And I think other cities too are looking at that model and they're all looking at like, oh, this actually looks like it's pretty effective. So it's pretty cool to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it just kind of plays into this whole criminal justice aspect. I tell everybody, is like, man, if there was a silver bullet that fixed, like if you just changed one thing, it would solve all our problems. Like, trust me, we would all love it. But criminal justice is such a complex policy issue. Like you have to hunt and find solutions everywhere.
Yeah, and it's not just a police problem. I mean, that's the thing. You talk about all these things, and one of the things is everything seems to be on the backs of the police to deal with, and you just can't run cities that way. And so you have to come up with and they are complex. I mean, the unhoused and being homeless is very complex. You have veterans, you have a lot of mental illness and drug addiction and all of those things, and sometimes both, right? And all those things coming into play. And so how do you deal with that as a city? You certainly can't take a whole group of people that are having those issues and dump them in one place without having the resources that they need and expect something good's going to come from that.
Right.
And so when you talk about the hot spots being created, from bringing people to these locations, yeah, you're going to get that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you have to be thoughtful, and it has to be a whole holistic approach on how you're dealing with these things. And so great that we have organizations like that are doing the work, and we have to be part of that.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll always have to be part of that.
Yeah. But I think it's an interesting point because, we have, there's ebbs and flows, extreme swings and everything. But what you just said, I think, is something that kind of gets lost a lot in the narrative, where a lot of the times we become the end all be all, where it's like, well, we don't know how to deal with it. Just give it to the cops.
Well,
and it was like,
24/7.
Right.
That's exactly it.
Exactly. And we're the one of the few, right? Us, fire, EMS
Yep.
are the ones where you call and we come to you.
Right.
And so, like, we are expected oftentimes to be the problem solvers for everything. And oftentimes that means that we get wrapped up in things where it's like, we're not the experts. Like, we shouldn't be the
Yeah.
primaries, but we're the
Right.
ones that are expected to go and deal with this.
Mhm.
And so trying to remove some of those things and start getting back more towards like, hey, there are other people that have more expertise than us, and we just can't be the only ones that are looking at this. We're part of it,
Right.
right? Because that public safety aspect, that's always going to be us.
Yep.
But you can't just expect us to solve all of these problems. We'll help you. Like, we can help identify issues. We can have the conversations.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it takes more than just us to solve these things. And so trying to find more of these groups to be engaged in the problem solving and
Yeah.
to help spread that workload out is really the only way you're going to solve a lot of these problems
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Yep, I agree.
So,
We need more of these, agencies working shift work, and we need more of them, on second shift and third shift that are
Yeah.
there when we're having these, people are having crisis and we're dealing with this. So
Yeah.
again, it's very complex.
Yeah.
And if we could solve it, Mike, we'd make a lot of money, wouldn't we? If we came up with that magic bullet.
Yeah, unfortunately, my consulting gig isn't stood up for that one yet. I don't have the solution yet.
We don't have the solution.
No,
I don't think
I keep-
anybody does.
Yeah, I'll keep working on that one.
Yep.
What's something that you would, having gone to these meetings, been here for a little bit, everything that you're seeing, like, what would be something that you want Austinites to know? Like, what do you think are important things for them to know about APD, what you're working on, stuff like that?
Yeah, I want them to know, so going back to the whole thing with the abandoned cars, right? So to hear those things, it's important. And no matter how small they may think it is, if it affects that neighborhood, I want to hear about it. So from that one meeting that I went to in Dove Springs, now we're going to have a 2-day towing effort where we're going to, tow a bunch of cars and make that happen and figure out a better process to get these cars. And if that's going to council and asking for a different resolution or how we get these cars removed, it's important. And I want to hear about it. And I think the more you can get at the grassroots level of these neighborhoods and what's really concerning them, and sometimes it's that one little change that can change that whole dynamic of a neighborhood when you talk about quality of life. If it's, from you talk about dumpsters or you talk about garbage, removing a dumpster from one location and putting it somewhere else, sometimes that can have a huge effect. So I want us to think in small terms like that. Sometimes it's not this huge overall problem-solving project. Sometimes it's just those small, everyday things that we can do that can truly change the dynamic of a neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I want them to know that I'm listening. That's it, and that I care about that.
Yeah. I heard too something about a local graffiti guy.
And do we want to even? We don't want to. I don't want to give him his name out there, right? Because they love that.
All right.
The graffiti artists love for you to talk about their name, but the graffiti problem in the city is real, and so we need to address it. And so, one guy, I think it's a guy. I'm looking at these neighborhood forums, and I'm looking at they keep talking about him, and so we identified him. They got him picked up. I think there were some other charges on him that he was wanted. I think it was for a felony outside of Austin that we ended up getting him, but. This is the reality. It's not just these private homes and private businesses that are getting affected, but some state. This guy's all over. The roadways and everything. So I think we have to address those things because it's not okay.
And it's a big part of it, right? The way your neighborhoods look impact how people feel,
of course,
within that neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're able to have that pride in your neighborhood, it kind of it translates a little bit to conversations that we've had about in policing, right? It used to be where officers were assigned districts, and you had pride in taking care of your district. This was my spot.
Right.
I patrol this area. Like, I know the people. I know my businesses. I know my folks. Right.
Yep.
And the same is true just as much on the citizen side, where it's like, hey, this is my neighborhood. I want it to look
have
good.
Some pride. Yeah, absolutely.
And so even those minor things, because oftentimes graffiti is not the highest level offense
Exactly.
by
And
any
people think,
means.
oh, is it victimless? Can we just paint over that? Whatever. And there's certainly a space for that, right? I mean, you could appreciate the art
Sure.
and you can talk about what that, the art of it all, but there's a space for that. And it certainly isn't
Mhm.
on these businesses that are trying to operate and, the
Right.
small business owners, that can't afford to make those changes like that. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, this stuff matters. And so we need to address it.
Yes. Yes. No, it definitely does. Like I think it's good to help people in those little things as
Mhm.
well. It's
Yep.
kind of at times it's hard, but
And I think that
it's
goes
definitely
back to when we talk about, when we do get our numbers back to where they need to be, of having more DRs, of having each sector having their own DRs and being able to navigate those issues. But then that being on every officer's mind, that being on
Mhm.
every like you said, that's your district, that's your responsibility. This is your area of responsibility. Know
Yeah.
who's there, know what crimes being
Yeah.
done there, know who's doing it, know the people, and there's serious wins in that.
Yeah. Well, and it's very important, right? I remember very distinctly that on two different occasions working Southwest Austin, there was a local food trailer that was in my beat, and so in my district, and I would go by because he'd be there late at night, working till 3 o'clock in the morning because he had like a little mini bakery shop set up in his trailer. Great guy, phenomenal guy, and so I'd go by when it was slow. I'd just go by and talk to him, just meet him, say hi, all this other kind of stuff. Well, then we had a crash that happened. It was a pretty significant crash down at like South First and Old Torf, and he was working. And so I went and talked to him, and I was like, "Hey, like, do you have any like camera footage of this guy coming down the road?" And sure enough, he did. And he was like, "Oh yeah, like I've seen this guy doing this, that, and the other, whatever." He had like a whole bunch of information that was very useful
Mhm.
to the investigation.
Yep.
But because I'd talked with him, I knew about it. Like I knew he was usually there, and he'd pop up on scenes every now and then and be like, "Hey, like I just saw this guy walk by here. I saw this, that, and the other,
You had that
whatever." Like he was,
relationship.
he was super helpful. And then another guy that even was, folks that are homeless that are living in the areas,
Mhm.
right? A lot of times, there's a lot of people that they're extremely friendly too, and
Oh,
you
yeah.
spend time talk to them. They've got
And they
cool
like to see
stories.
the police too.
They
That's
love it. Yeah. And so we were chasing a guy one day and lost sight of him. And he had kind of like gone through this intersection where this one particular homeless individual was sitting. And I went over and talked to him a lot. And so I went over and I was like, "Hey, do you see anybody real through here?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, that dude just ran right over there." And so I was like, "Great."
Yeah.
Went down there and we found him. So
Right.
like, it's just having these relationships
It does, and it
like,
builds
you never know what
legitimacy, right? And you talk
Yeah.
about police legitimacy, and that is exactly what that means. Is you have
Mhm.
built those relationships with people, and then when things do go sideways or things go wrong, or they know you and they trust
Yeah.
you, and they know that you police well, and so that's what it's all about, is building that.
Yeah. No, it definitely is.
Yep.
This is still the coolest job ever. Like,
Yes. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I love telling new people that, right? Like when I talk to people that are
Mhm.
just about to finish the academy or thinking about going in,
Yep.
it's like, hey, like if you're going in, like this is tough work. It's tough to get in. It's tough to get through. Like it's not an easy process, but man, it's a cool job when you finish. Like there's so much that you get to do. There's a lot of crap that you got to deal with too.
Right.
But at the end of the day, like I never thought I'd even get to do this.
Right.
Like this is a job. This is
Mhm.
what I get to do. Like this
And
is
I get paid for it.
and I get
Yeah.
paid to do this.
Right.
Like this
Yeah.
is awesome.
Yep.
Right? Like I love doing what I get to do. And I love patrol. Like working patrol is so
Mhm.
much fun. So
Yep.
speaking of, loving this job and wanting to do it, I mean, we're obviously still trying to recruit people to come to
Yes.
the department.
Uh-huh.
So, apdrecruiting.org, I believe, is the website. Just shout out there if you're listening, you're wondering, please, go look us up. But what's something that you would tell people, right? Like someone that they know someone that's thinking about policing, that's wanting to apply, thinking about applying. What's important things that you think they should know or that you would want to tell them to get them to come here?
Yeah, I think it's important when you look at we are living in a society right now, right, that has made policing a social issue
Mhm.
itself to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say to those that want a noble profession, because it is noble,
Yes.
to come to there are many careers you can spend 30 years in and never feel like you made a difference.
Mm.
And in policing, every single day you can make a difference. And I tell that story about every interaction we have can change someone's life. And we may not take it that way. It may not seem as serious to us as officers, but every single day, every interaction, every arrest you make, removing someone from a house that's abusing someone, all of those things, you have the ability to change someone's life. And so to live with that and to feel like I've made a difference, that's policing. That's what policing is.
Yeah.
So if you want that and good pay and a good environment, come to APD.
Yeah. No, it is. It is a great place to be. And one of the things that I do love the most is that officers are so good at taking care of one another, right? Like there's a lot of times, like, not to be underestimated. This is an extremely, like I said, it's the best job in the world. It's an extremely rewarding. I 100% agree. This is a noble profession to be in. And part of that nobility is because that badge means something,
right.
And that means there's a lot of sacrifice that goes with it as well. Sacrificing bits of yourself to endure the things that you're going to see in this job and in this profession. But APD is also so good at taking care of, especially on shift levels and unit levels, of taking care of one another and making sure that you're there. I've sat many a time in a hospital with an officer surrounded by their shift mates, and like you have to tell people, like, okay, you need to leave, right? Like they need time, then let them sleep, whatever. But everybody shows up, and so knowing that it's a great department, it's a great city. Every city is going to have its challenges. I've talked to plenty of officers that have left here, gone to another city, and they're like, oh, "Can I come back?" It's like, yes, we'll take you back. It's okay.
That was well said. And I think too, people have this. There's sometimes this negative connotation with the thin blue line. We talk about that, right? But to me, it's about being there, and you're right. The camaraderie between on your shift and your the people that are in policing as well. What that means, but it's also about having people that can come and you go onto a call and it's, what were you doing? That was dumb. You could have handled that better. Yeah. And that's part of it, right? Is that's part of that camaraderie. Is let's talk about a better way we could have done that. Let's talk about that. And so that's what that is. That is it. And it is about having someone that every bad, whether it's these accidents or the homicides and all these, to see a young child abused, all those things, man, that'll take its toll on you. And if you don't have people to talk to, or a group of people that understand exactly what you've just seen, or not that you ever understand it, but understand what you're going through.
Right.
Man, there's power in that, and you have to have that, because you're right. There is a price to pay for this noble work, and it will and it can chip away at you if you let it. But it's truly about having those other people around you that understand that and can talk you through it and help you understand and put it in perspective. Yeah,
and that's more and more as I've longer I have been here and watching and being part of this profession, is where, to me, you can interpret that thin blue line a couple different ways, right? Like, to a degree, yes, it's that line that stands between order and chaos, where you're standing in the gap between, people who are trying to victimize innocent folks. Like, yes, that is part of it. But a big part of that also is just the family that represents and taking care of one another.
That's the way I've always looked at it.
Yeah, that's that. And to me, that's a big part of it. The most comforting sound in the world, I remember not long after I got here, I got into a fight. There was an individual that was trying to take my gun, an extremely violent individual. And so kind of got him held, but it was just me. I was just by myself. But was able to get out just in time over the radio before the full fight was on that I was fighting somebody. And then, you quit responding on the radio, so everybody's coming. The most comforting sound in the world is to hear all of your shift mates coming to come and help you, right? And knowing that there are that many people dedicated to the profession, where at the end of the day, the goal is to take care of our city. The goal is to keep our city safe. The goal is to keep Austin a phenomenal place to live, to work, to raise a family, to, enjoy. Like, that's the goal at the end of the day. But to know there's so many people that are dedicated to fulfilling that mission is, I guess, just one of the coolest things in the world.
I agree.
I love it.
Totally agree.
Well, I appreciate you joining us. This has been awesome. Anything else before we kind of wrap up here? Anything else that any other pending thoughts you got for us?
No, I think this is great, and it'd be great if we could get to a point we can get some questions in that maybe citizens have, right? Like that our community that we serve, and I'd love to be back.
Yeah,
I'd love to come back.
Maybe we should try to do maybe we can do like a teletown hall type thing,
where
we can get people to, like, just average folks, if they want to do that.
Yeah.
So if you're watching this, you're interested in that, you can put a comment in there like, hey, yeah, that'd be great. We'd be interested in that. But yeah, that'd be awesome. We'd be more than happy to sit here and answer questions. I want to thank
you guys for reaching out to the community. I think it's important, and we talk about how we can do that. You can respond to community meetings, but unfortunately people work and people don't get to those community meetings. So to be
Yeah.
able to have a forum where you could reach a lot of people, I think that's fantastic. So
Yeah.
thanks to you guys.
Yeah. The power of technology. It's a
Absolutely.
wonderful thing.
You're not
so,
kidding.
but all right. Well, thanks for joining us.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. Yeah. And
Absolutely.
we'll be back, everybody, for another episode here before long.